Incredible millionaire discovers black cleaner studying in darkness, hidden talent transforms lives. In the heart of Philadelphia, where street vendors shout to peddle their wares and city lights flicker against the night sky, Miles Livingston sat alone in his grand historic home. A self-made millionaire at 38, he believed that wealth dictated worth. But life was more than money. It was about perception, was it not? Miles was lost in that self-conception when he first met Tanisha. Miles had hired her to clean his home, her hard-working hands gliding over polished wood surfaces. One night, he caught a glimpse of her studying under the flickering glow of a lamp. He felt something tug at him. Her brows knitted, her mouth forming silent words, each moment vibrated with raw determination that lit a fire in his chest. Was this the passion he had been missing? As Tanisha pored over textbooks, her mind raced beyond the chaotic story of her life. A single mother, juggling cleaning houses during the day and studying at night, she fought for a scholarship that seemed as far away as the stars she admired from her window. Watching Tanisha ignite with ambition transformed Miles. He began to glimpse the world through her eyes, past the bank accounts, beyond the dinner parties. Suddenly, there was more at stake than privilege. This connection opened a door to wild, new experiences. Miles invited Tanisha into his upscale world, art galleries, lofty conversations, and glitzy parties. Dressed in elegant gowns, she was a beautiful puzzle piece in a puzzle of perfect strangers. As they mingled, Miles saw the too enthusiastic smiles she wore start to crack under gazes that pierced through her. A world that sparkled had shadows, a reality of whispered judgments and invisible walls. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One rainy evening, the heaviness of their friendship settled around them like the storm clouds brewing overhead. Miles stumbled upon her fierce words during a discussion about injustice. The way she spoke, her voice swelled with emotion, resonated with the struggles of her community. It struck him, a hidden talent for oration that could shake the elite foundations. But with every uplifting moment came a poignant reminder of their divide. Tension brewed silently just beneath the surface. Tanisha's family struggled as bills piled high, and the inequalities of the world pressed upon them. It was there, in that depth of pain and expectation, that they faced a heartbreaking confrontation. Would success ever be defined the same way for them? Anger simmered alongside fear. They stood across each other, two worlds colliding, each craving understanding but wrapped in their insecurities. In that moment of reckoning, Miles found himself at a crossroads. His privilege felt heavy, pressing against his very soul. Tanisha held every aspiration close to her heart, yet faced a reality she could not escape. What lay ahead for them? Could they confront the invisible barriers that held them back? As the storm raged outside, the weight of the unspoken hung between them like an unresolved chord. A question lingered in the air, leaving neither of them prepared for what was about to unfold next. Miles felt the chill of the air as the storm battered against the windows. Droplets fell in rhythmic patterns, striking the glass like tiny fists trying to get in. He stared at Tanisha, their connection magnified by the downpour. She was not just a cleaner in his home, she was a fierce warrior in an ongoing battle against societal expectations, inequality, and her own doubts. "Why do you keep trying to fit into the world I live in?" Tanisha asked, her voice steady yet filled with an undercurrent of frustration. It cut through the tension like a flash of lightning illuminating the darkness. "You know I don't belong there, right?" Miles felt a pang in his chest. He wanted to shout that it wasn't true, that she belonged everywhere. But the truth stung. In those glossy spaces, he had often felt the weight of his status and the expectations that came with it as heavy chains, and he wondered if he had placed similar constraints on her. "Because I see you, Tanisha. I see your potential," he managed to say, struggling against the gravity of reality. But it's hard for me too. I don't know how to bridge this gap. Her eyes flickered with a flame of courage. You want to save me, Miles? You can't. I need to save myself. Silence filled the room, heavy, thick, a palpable thing. Tanisha shifted her gaze to the window, watching the raindrops race down the glass. The moon slipped out from behind the clouds, reflecting off her profile and casting shadows across the room. In that moment it wasn't just her life moments that she was racing toward, it felt like she was contemplating everything that stood in her way. Then she turned back to him, vulnerability blooming in her expression. What about your family? Your friends? Can they accept me? Or am I just your little project? Miles flinched at her words, anger swirling within him for the unfairness of it all. The walls of his home felt like they were closing in. You're not a project, he exclaimed, frustration escaping in the intensity of his voice. You're something incredible, Tanisha. I want the world to see what I see. She took a step closer, and he could feel her heart pounding in the air between them. And what do you see, Miles? Just another story to tell when you go back to your perfect life? He searched her eyes, desperate to convey the truth swirling within him. No. I see strength. I see brilliance. I want to help you, to be part of your journey. Is that what I am to you? Just a journey to experience? Tanisha's words sliced through, penetrating deeper than he expected. He fell silent. He didn't want her to feel objectified, to think of herself as merely a tale woven into his grand life. The rain intensified outside, mirroring the storm brewing inside him. Maybe, he finally whispered, we need to find our own paths. Together. Not as savior and saved but as equals, as partners. Her expression softened, the sharp edges of the conversation smoothing out. A flicker of hope ignited in Tanisha's eyes as she considered his words. Partners, she repeated, her voice softer now. But can we really be equals? The question hung between them like mist, delicate yet dense. Both of them stood at a precipice, uncertainty echoing in the air, a connection that bristled with the potential for something greater. He reached out, wanting to bridge the divide, but was afraid of crossing unsteady ground. In that moment of quiet, with the storm still raging outside, both knew they stood on the cusp of change. But what happens when the storm settles and they must face the real world together? Would they find the courage to shatter the barriers that held them apart? As the rain tapped against the window, a moment of clarity washed over Miles. He felt the weight of Tanisha's words hanging heavily between them, a mixture of hope and fear. The heat of the argument had subsided, but the residual tension lingered, buzzing softly like a live wire. Do you really think we can make this work? He asked, his voice softer now, almost tentative. He was afraid of the answer. Tanisha lowered her gaze, revealing a flurry of emotion beneath her strong exterior. It's terrifying to think about, she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. I've always been on my own. The idea of depending on someone else, it's a lot. Miles understood that feeling. He had built walls around his heart too, shielding himself from vulnerability and the chance of disappointment. I get that. But I don't accept how things are, he said, stepping closer. You're not alone in this anymore. Not if you don't want to be. She looked up, her eyes shining even in the dim light. And what if I can't meet your expectations, Miles? What if what you see isn't real? Then we figure it out together, he asserted. Expectations are what smother the truth anyway. He could sense the shift in her, the way she was leaning into the possibility. It thrilled and terrified him all at once. But before he could speak again, the storm outside reached a crescendo, the wind howling like a wounded beast. A flash of lightning ignited the room briefly, and he caught a glimpse of doubt crossing Tanisha's face. She started, but the sharp crack of thunder drowned her voice. They both jumped, startled by the ferocity of nature's display. I'll tell you what, he said, voice steady. Let's take a break from all this heaviness. How about we go out tomorrow? Just you and me. No expectations, just us. A slight smile crept onto her lips. What do you have in mind? Something simple. How about a picnic? There's a park not far from here. We could just be ourselves. She paused, the storm seemingly settling within her. A picnic sounds nice. As they exchanged smiles, a feeling of relief blossomed in the air. The storm might have raged outside, but in that moment, the tension began to dissipate between them. Let's make a plan, he suggested, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. You can show me your favorite dishes. I'll bring the blanket. Her laughter floated through the room like music, easing some of their earlier tension. Okay, I'll hold you to that. Just don't be shocked if my cooking skills blow your mind. I'm counting on it, he replied, a grin spreading across his face. As Tanisha turned back toward the window, a sense of warmth enveloped them both. Maybe this was the start of something meaningful, a bridge built on mutual respect and understanding, but as they settled into a more relaxed atmosphere, an unexpected reality loomed over them, waiting impatiently beyond the confines of the storm. Would the world outside accept their bond? Was it too fragile to survive the judgments waiting just beyond their doors? Silence filled the space again, a moment of calm before the inevitable return to life's complexities. And as they both stood there, their thoughts tangled with hope and uncertainty, the night remained heavy with unspoken questions. Just how durable is the invisible thread that connects two seemingly different worlds? The next day, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a soft glow over the dampened earth. Miles stood at his window, watching the sunlight dance on the raindrops clinging to the leaves. He felt a lightness in his chest, a thrill building as he remembered the plans he had made with Tanisha. This felt different, like a fresh start. After a quick breakfast, he gathered his things, a picnic blanket, a bottle of sparkling water, and some snacks he had picked up from the local market. He thought about the flavors Tanisha would bring to their meal. Would she bring her grandmother's secret recipe? The anticipation made his heart race. When he arrived at the park, he found a spot under a large oak tree, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. The grass was still damp, but there was a tangible freshness in the air. He laid out the blanket and took a moment to breathe in the newness of the day, the sight of people walking dogs, children playing, couples laughing. For the first time in a long while, he felt hopeful. Minutes later, Tanisha arrived, her hair cascading in soft curls around her face. She wore a bright yellow sundress that brightened the day even more, and a warm smile lit her features as she approached. "Wow," he said, holding his arms wide. "Look at you. The sun has got some serious competition." She chuckled, crossing her arms playfully. "You're just trying to butter me up for my cooking skills." "Guilty as charged," he said, laughing. "What did you bring?" With a flourish, she unveiled her carefully packed basket. The colors and aromas wafted through the air, pulling Miles closer. "I took your challenge seriously," she grinned, pulling out containers filled with vibrant dishes: jollof rice, plantains, and spicy chicken skewers. "Hope you're ready for an explosion of flavor." "Are you kidding? This looks amazing." He could nearly taste it already. As they sat down together on the blanket, there was an easy rhythm between them, a camaraderie that felt genuine and promising. As they dove into the food, conversations flowed naturally. They bantered about their favorite dishes, shared childhood memories, and spoke about dreams as if weaving an invisible tapestry of their lives together. But amidst the lightheartedness, shadows lurked in the corners of Tanisha's eyes. Miles noticed how occasionally she would drift off in thought, her smile faltering. He didn't want to push, but the question nudged at him. "Hey," he said softly, pausing his fork mid-air. "Are you okay? You seem a million miles away." She looked up at him, her features softening. "Just processing, I guess. It's easy to pretend everything's fine, but the truth is I've always struggled to fit in." Miles felt his heart twinge. He set down his plate, intrigued by the vulnerability in her voice. "You mean fitting into your surroundings?" "Yeah, and my past keeps whispering doubts in my ear," she admitted. What if people see us and can't look past what we are? What if? What if they don't? Miles interrupted gently. You're incredible, Tanisha. You're more than the sum of your parts. We can bend the world to see us if we stand firm together. There was a spark in her eyes, a glimmer of that strength he had come to admire in her. Do you really believe that? Absolutely. The conversation hung heavy with connection and possibility. Just then, a small boy riding his bike zoomed past them, laughing as he nearly crashed into the picnic blanket. They both burst into laughter as the little boy regained his balance, and yet the underlying weight of their earlier conversation still stirred in the air. As they settled back into their plates, watching the world spin around them, Miles couldn't ignore the thought pressing at the back of his mind. Could their moment of connection survive this difficult world? And would Tanisha's fears end up shadowing what they had begun? Because they were both standing on the edge of something beautiful, but the question lingered: was it enough to overcome the unseen barriers waiting to challenge them? The laughter from the little boy faded into the hum of the park, but the warmth from their conversation lingered. Miles reached for a warm piece of plantain, savoring its sweetness. He watched Tanisha as she bit into a spicy chicken skewer, her eyes lighting up. For a moment, everything felt perfect, but the weight of their previous conversation hung between them like a curtain waiting to be drawn back. Have you thought about what you want to do after school? He asked, trying to steer the conversation back into lighter territory. He didn't want to delve deeper into her worries, at least not yet. She paused, her gaze drifting to the families nearby, their laughter mingling with the sounds of nature. Honestly, I'm kind of torn. There's this part of me that wants to chase the corporate world, to climb the ladder and make a name for myself. But another part, it craves creativity, you know. Miles nodded, intrigued. What kind of creativity? I've always loved art, she admitted, brushing the hair behind her ear. Painting, mostly. But I've never thought it could actually be a way to make a living. It feels too risky, like I'd be leaving something too safe behind. Art is one of the truest forms of expression. It's worth exploring, he said earnestly. And there's no formula. You could wake up tomorrow and decide to paint, and boom. You're an artist. It doesn't have to be a corporate ladder to be a success. A soft smile emerged on her face, and for a moment, Miles could see the warmth in her eyes battling against the doubts lurking there. You really think I could do that? Without a doubt. The conversation shifted back to lighter topics: movies, favorite childhood games, and dreams of travel. Laughter flowed freely again, and Miles felt a connection deepening, a bond formed within the gentle chaos of their surroundings. But as the sun began to decline, casting a golden hue around the park, he could sense something lingering in the air. The storm clouds of uncertainty still hovered just outside their laughter. Tanisha's gaze dropped, her fingers tracing patterns on the blanket. Miles, can I be honest with you about something? Yeah, of course. What's on your mind? What if this doesn't last? What if it's just a moment of sunshine before the storm comes back? Her words were quiet but cut through the air like a sharp wind. Miles felt his heart race. Is that what you really think? That we can't be more than this? It's not that I don't want to be, but she struggled to find the words. The world around us, and my past, it makes it hard to trust. Trust takes time, Tanisha. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. But we can't live in fear, right? What if we took this one step at a time? Her expression softened as she met his gaze. You make it sound so easy. Maybe not easy, but worthwhile. He reached for her hand, feeling the warmth of connection spark between them. Let us promise to be honest, to be in this together. Whatever comes, we'll face it. Tanisha considered his words, her expression opening up like a flower unfurling toward the sun. However, another part of her still seemed distant, half turned away. Okay, she said slowly, drawing her hand away. But promises are heavy, Miles. What if? What if we fly? He countered, hoping to deflate her worries, even just a little, they fell silent for a moment, the sounds of the park swirling around them, laughter and joy intermixed with unvoiced dread. The conversation felt significant, like each word was a step toward an uncertain future. As dusk began to cloak them in shadows, Miles noticed Tanisha's eyes reflecting the vibrant colors of the sunset. They both remained silent, both wondering if they had the strength to embrace the tremors of vulnerability lying just beneath the surface. Would they find a way to weave their dreams together despite their fears? Before he could voice any more thoughts, a sudden commotion drew their attention. A nearby couple was arguing loudly, and their raised voices shattered the tranquility. Tension flared in the air, and Miles felt a jolt of unease. "What's going on?" Tanisha whispered, her eyes darting to the scene unfolding just a few yards away. Miles tightened his grip on her hand. "Let us find out." Would the troubles of others serve as a mirror for what lay in their own hearts? Far away from the laughter, the weight of that confrontation loomed large, and now they both were pulled into a moment teetering between joy and chaos. The couple's argument escalated. Shouting words echoed amidst the laughter fading into the distance. Tanisha leaned closer, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "What are they even fighting about?" "I don't know," Miles replied, his own curiosity piqued. The tension enveloped them, wrapping tighter than the blankets beneath them. He glanced again at the couple. The woman gestured wildly, her face a storm of emotion. The man seemed defensive, fists clenched. "Should we intervene?" Tanisha asked, concern knitting her brow. Maybe he hesitated, considering. But it might make things worse. "Let's just watch for now." He hoped the words would soothe her, but he felt a swell of unease. Conflict had a way of spilling over, especially when emotions ran high. They stayed rooted in place, as if the energy of the fight had stuck them in some kind of bubble, suffocated even the park's joyful sounds. Miles wondered if the couple felt the same weight of uncertainty thrumming in the air as they did. What if they heard each other? Tanisha's voice trembled slightly, and Miles felt a pang in his heart. Fear was contagious, and it seeped deep into the cracks of their earlier conversation. "Let us focus on us," he offered softly, turning to face her. "Look, we're here. You and me. This moment, there's power in that." He moved a little closer, aiming to bridge the gap that seemed to widen with every raised voice they heard. "I know." She managed a small smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Instead, they reflected the chaos unfolding nearby. From the corner of his eye, he saw the man throw his hands up in the air, frustration spilling over. "You think this is easy for me? You don't know what I'm going through." Miles felt that same tumult roiling in his own stomach, lingering thoughts swirling like storm clouds. What if their relationship faced similar storms? He silently hoped they could weather whatever challenges came their way, but the fear gnawed at him. "Listen," he began slowly, sensing the shift in the air. "Seeing this makes me think about how we handle our frustrations." "What do you mean?" Tanisha asked, her brow furrowing in confusion. "I mean, if we don't talk about what bothers us like you feel about trusting this, then it winds up exploding, right?" He glanced back at the couple, who had shifted from shouting to tears. Tanisha nodded, understanding deepening on her face. "You think we're like them?" "Not yet. But it could happen if we're not careful," Miles said. "We're still learning how to navigate. And I don't want to be wrapped up in a fight over something we could address before it comes to that." "I hear you," she replied, her voice gaining strength. Her expression was shifting, the tension slowly releasing as the chaos became a pull to solidify their connection. "It's just. I'm scared. Scared of vulnerability and trusting again." "I am too," he admitted, fear and sincerity mixing freely. "Being open feels risky, but burying it feels riskier." As if on cue, the couple beside them began to calm down, the argument dissolving into tentative hugs and whispered apologies. Relief washed over the nearby onlookers, laughter and chatter gradually returning to the atmosphere. "There. Look at them," Miles pointed. They're talking it out instead of letting it fester. Tanisha watched the scene unfold, her expression thoughtful. Do you think chatting it out really works? Seems to be, he replied, squeezing her hand lightly. I mean, you wanted to talk to me, right? Maybe we can start with something small before it ever gets that chaotic. She bit her lip. Okay. So, let us talk. I guess I need to ask, what do you really want, Miles? And how do I fit into that picture? He felt his chest tightening at her question, a half-answer dangling on his lips. It was a delicate moment, one where honesty felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. He wanted to step forward, but the ground looked shaky. I want to know you, all of you. The dreams, the fears, everything. I'm here for it. But what if we fall? She whispered, her voice breaking the quiet like a distant echo of their earlier conversation. Then we fall together, he said, resolutely. Let us promise to always talk before we come apart. Miles swallowed hard, a hope fluttering within him, a determination to transform their unsteady steps into a pathway towards something real, but before the moment could solidify, a sudden shout rang out from behind them, drawing both their attentions. The dramatic flare set a new spark in the air, shifting the tone just as they had begun to find solid ground. Look! A young girl yelled, pointing at a commotion by the playground. They've found something. Miles exchanged a glance with Tanisha, curiosity replacing the weight of their conversation. All their budding emotions felt suspended. What could possibly come from this new distraction? Would it bring them closer, or would it tip the scales back toward chaos? A murmur rippled through the crowd as they turned to face the playground, laughter mixing with a sense of intrigue. Miles and Tanisha leaned forward, tension dissipating under the magnetic pull of curiosity. What could it be? Tanisha asked, her voice filled with a childlike wonder. Let us find out, Miles replied, standing up with renewed energy. He extended his hand toward her, and she took it, their fingers intertwining as they navigated through clusters of people. As they approached, the scene became clearer. A small group of kids gathered around a mound of sand. Childhood excitement radiated from their faces, eyes wide and gleaming. A little girl with bright pigtails was digging fervently, her small hands tossing sand wildly behind her. I wonder what she has discovered, Miles mused aloud. Whatever it is, it seems pretty important to her, Tanisha replied, her words infused with warmth. Finally breaking through the crowd, they reached the front, and there it was, a worn, wooden box half buried in the sand. The excitement crackled through the air as both children and adults leaned in, captivated by the mystery that lay within. Treasure! One boy shouted, his face lit up with delight. The girl paused, glancing up with a grin that spread from ear to ear. I think so. I saw it sparkle. Just as the anticipation peaked, she carefully pulled the box free. Dirty and aged, it looked like it had seen better days. The moment felt significant, like a hinge turning in a door. Tanisha squeezed Miles' hand tighter, her eyes sparkling almost as much as the box. You think we should help? She asked, tilting her head. Let us see what she finds first, Miles suggested, equally curious about the contents. The little girl rested the box on her lap, her tiny fingers trembling. With great care, she lifted the lid. The box creaked, sounding like an eager gasp. Inside, glimmering bits of shiny stones emerged, each one catching the sunlight and flashing vibrant colors. Gasps escaped the crowd. Wow! Tanisha breathed, her wonder bringing back the innocence of a simpler time. What if they're real? Miles pondered aloud, leaning closer. Their excitement blended with that of the children, igniting memories of their own shared adventures and dreams. It struck him, this scene was a reminder of the treasures they might uncover in their own lives if they chose to dig a little deeper, but as the children leaned in closer, another voice cut through the joy. That's just a trick. They're probably nothing. A boy, slightly older, stepped forward, arms crossed, disdain plastered across his face. Miles' heart sank, the moment of wonder suddenly dimmed by a sting of negativity. He felt the warmth that had built in Tanisha's eyes flicker. Why does he have to ruin it? She murmured, shaking her head. Not everyone sees beauty the same way, Miles replied softly, but he couldn't shake the disappointment. Tanisha looked up at him, searching for a glimmer of resolve. Can we stand up for them? Of course, he said, standing taller. Let us support what brings them joy. They could feel the tension shift again, this time instilling a deeper bond between them, fueled by a shared purpose. As they stepped forward, a small voice broke through the noise. They're mine. I found them first. The girl's fierce pride shone like the stones, pushing aside the negativity, filling the hearts around her with newfound hope. Miles watched Tanisha's expression transform. She stood straighter, emboldened by the child's defiance. Yes. You have every right to be excited, Tanisha declared, her voice ringing clear. The crowd turned, drawn into her conviction. In that moment, Miles realized that maybe joy was as fragile as it was resilient. It could be challenged but also defended fiercely. Reflecting on their earlier conversation, he sensed something thawing between them, both of them warming to the fragility of life and the sweetness found in those honest connections. Let us make a pact, he said, feeling charged with newfound energy. To protect the treasures in our lives, the small moments, the beauty we find, and to stand up for them, no matter what others say. She nodded, eyes brightening again. With hands still clasped, they returned their gaze to the girl, who was now smiling widely, unbothered by the boy's negativity. But just as a sense of unity began to settle, another scream echoed from the edge of the crowd. The noise sent a shiver racing down Miles's spine. Was it fear or something else entirely? They turned, hearts racing again. What now? Tanisha whispered, something akin to dread creeping back. Miles faced her, uncertainty shadowing his features. I guess we're about to find out. The crowd surged like a tide, eyes darting nervously around. Fear hung in the air, thick and palpable. Miles felt the weight of Tanisha's hand, her fingers tightening around his. He turned to face the playground, where shadows shifted under the trees as another scream pierced through the chatter. The girl with the box looked frightened now, the sparkles in her treasure dimmed by the sudden chaos. Kids began to pull back, retreating from the scene, uncertainty twisting their little faces. Miles, what do you think happened? Tanisha's voice trembled slightly. I don't know, he admitted, trying to mask his own fear. Let us stick together. He scanned the mass of onlookers, their expressions a jumbled mix of confusion and curiosity. Then, from behind the crowd, a figure appeared. Taller than most, an adult hurried toward them. His shirt was stained with mud, and his hair was a wild mess, but it was the fear in his eyes that hit Miles like a punch to the gut. There's a dog. The man's breath came in quick gasps, his words spilling out in a rush. A big one. And it's loose. Gasps erupted from the crowd, and kids screamed as they realized their fun-filled day had just taken a dark turn. Miles could see parents moving instinctively to gather their children. Panic spread like wildfire. Stay close. Tanisha pulled at his arm, her voice laced with urgency. I think we need to help. Miles said, his heart racing not just from fear but from a sense of responsibility rising within him. This was a moment where they could be brave. He glanced at the girl still clutching her treasure, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. We can't let them face this alone. Are you sure? Tanisha asked, looking at him with a mixture of admiration and concern. He took a deep breath. Yeah, we have to protect each other. Together, they moved toward the edge of the crowd. As they approached, Miles could hear the barking grow louder, the angry growls echoing off the playground equipment. His heartbeat quickened, not from fear alone, but from anticipation, the kind that came with standing firm when everything around you was crumbling. What if it charges at us? Tanisha whispered, her eyes darting toward the sound. Miles swallowed hard. Then we distract it. Look, he saw a small group of kids nearby clutching their basketballs. We can use those. He signaled to the kids, who hesitated but were quickly swept up by the momentum of their resolve. He and Tanisha huddled close, voices low and focused. "Okay everyone, our goal is to get it to chase after something other than us," Miles instructed, his voice steady, even if his insides felt like jelly. As the barking intensified, the dog about the size of a small horse burst into the clearing, eyes wild and teeth bared. For a moment, the sight froze Miles in place. But he stood firm, feeling Tanisha's warmth at his side. Taking a deep breath, he called out, "Hey! Over here!" He threw the nearest basketball far from where they stood, watching, heart pounding, as the dog's ears perked up, eyeing the bouncing ball. Tanisha, with a mix of courage and fear, joined in, hurling the second ball alongside him. The dog, intrigued, began to shift its focus, chasing after the flying objects. "Now!" Miles shouted, rallying the kids. They scattered, trying to draw the animal further away from those lingering in the chaos. A few children joined in, laughing nervously as they grabbed their own balls and tossed them, the tension easing as adrenaline rushed through them, but just as the dog bounded after the balls, Miles heard a sob from the little girl behind them. "My box! My treasure!" The moment of unity hung in the balance. Would they stand together and embrace the strength they built? Or would the fear of the unknown tear them apart? In that heartbeat, facing the possibility of bravery against the madness, Miles turned back toward the girl. "We can't let your discovery get ruined." His heart raced, pushing him forward. This was a moment, a wild turn in an ordinary day. His eyes met Tanisha's, and without a word, they both understood, they were all in this together. "Let us get it," she said, eyes glowing with determination. As they charged back toward the danger, something within Miles shifted. He felt an inner strength, one that sparked a question that hovered just around the edges of his mind. What else could they discover if they just dared to dig deeper? And with that thought, they leaped into the fray. Miles powered through the crowd, the heavy thud of his heart matching the echoing growls of the dog. Tanisha was right beside him, her determination a silent anchor that urged him forward. As they sprinted back toward the little girl, he could see dread flooding her features. Her hands clutched the box tightly, not wanting to let go, but fear of the unleashed dog gripped her even more. "Hold on, we'll get it," he shouted, the words spilling out with a fervor he didn't fully feel. Closer now, Miles could see intricate designs painted on the box, a magical treasure she wasn't ready to lose. "Let us start throwing the basketballs again," Tanisha suggested, glancing back to see how close the dog was to them. Its ears were perked, head low, focused on the new urgent movements. "Right." Miles changed direction slightly, grabbing a basketball off the ground and tossing it away from the girl. The dog's eyes shifted, a mix of confusion and instinct kicking in. With the moment as tense as a spring, the dog lunged toward the ball, barking angrily. Relief washed over Miles, but it was short-lived. The little girl suddenly stumbled back, losing her balance as she got caught up in the chaos. "Catch her!" Tanisha yelled, and without thinking, Miles dashed forward, diving to grab the girl's arm just before she fell. "Are you okay?" he asked, eyes locking onto hers. The startled look on her face slowly morphed into one of gratitude. I don't want to lose it," she whispered, glancing back at the now erratic movement of the dog. "It's all right. We'll get your box," Miles reassured her, tightening his grip. "Just stay close to us." He looked around for the bouncing basketballs, and with a nod from Tanisha, they sprang into action. The few kids left milling around, faced with an evolving situation, finally grasped the gravity of the moment. They began to launch the basketballs like missiles, intending to steer the dog away completely. "Over here!" Tanisha yelled, her voice cutting through the tension in the air. She tossed her ball with all her might, starting a chain effect as a few others quickly followed suit. Miles watched the big dog chase after the volley of bouncing orbs, distracted enough to no longer fixate on their group. The once chaotic scene now transformed into a syncopated rhythm of laughter and excitement, children joining in and feeling buoyed by a sense of purpose, but amidst the chaos, Miles felt the slight weight of the girl's hand in his, an anchor reminding him what was truly at stake. "We can't let the dog backtrack. We need to keep it focused," he said urgently. Tanisha nodded as they all fell into a rhythm, working in tandem with each throw. A basketball sailed from one kid to the next, gaining momentum. The dog seemed almost to dance after its object of interest, lost in the play of the moment, while they worked to reclaim the box that had meant so much to the little girl. Then, just as victory seemed close, a loud crash startled them all. A swing broke loose from its support, swinging like a pendulum right toward them. Time slowed in those few seconds, and fear reignited in Miles's chest. They weren't just fighting an animal, they now faced the unpredictability of their surroundings. "Watch out!" he shouted and instinctively pushed the little girl, clearing her from the swing's path just as the chaotic energy of the playground exploded. As the swing collided with the ground, shouts filled the air, and all eyes turned toward the fallen swing set. Some had been caught off guard. Others looked on in horror, realizing a child's joy had turned into a monstrous threat. "Are you okay?" Tanisha asked, her voice choked with disbelief. Miles looked at the girl in his arms, seeing her fear transform into something deeper, a question of courage he could feel echoing in the way she clung to him. "Why did you help me?" she whispered. That he was taken aback. "Because it matters. You matter." But before any other words could escape, the dog, still chasing shadows, suddenly veered back toward them. That instinct for survival surged again, and they prepared for whatever was about to unfold. That in the midst of the uncertainty, a realization washed over Miles. More than just the dog, they were battling something far bigger, fears that stemmed from what they had to protect. Suddenly, as he looked into Tanisha's eyes, a question settled uncomfortably in his chest: how much more would they have to stand against to come out on the other side? With the dog barreling toward them, the air thick with tension and hope, he couldn't help but wonder if they would find their treasure within the turmoil, or would it all crumble before them? With a fierce determination, Miles darted toward the chaos, pulling the little girl along with him. Tanisha was right at his side, her resolve a steadying force as they moved through the tumult. "We won't let you down," he called out, his heart drumming in rhythm with the urgency of the moment. "Just keep close to me," Tanisha encouraged, her voice slicing through the panic. They navigated through the chaos, Miles' mind racing. Adrenaline surged, urging him onward. They had fought obstacles before, inner battles with vulnerability and trust, and now they faced something tangible, a loose dog charging like a whirlwind of anxiety. But they had to protect the little girl, and they had to face it together. A collective gasp echoed through the air as the dog darted closer, the anxiety palpable. Just as it locked its gaze on them, Miles threw a basketball to a child, rallying everyone around. "Go. Keep it focused." The children responded tensely yet bravely, tossing basketballs left and right. The dog, intrigued by the colorful orbs bouncing around, diverted its attention. Miles glanced back at Tanisha, and in that frantic moment, their eyes met, a silent communication of hope and strength. "We've got this," she exclaimed, pushing forward. Her words reignited a spark in his heart. He could feel his earlier doubts evaporating in the heat of the moment. Whatever walls had separated them before felt like mere shadows now. They pivoted, forming a line against the incoming storm, the little girl still clutching Miles' hand firmly, each heartbeat synchronized in shared courage. "It's okay to be scared," he breathed, squeezing her shoulder, "but together, we are stronger." As the dog chased the bouncing basketballs, Miles hopped in alongside Tanisha, and they focused on the girl, bolstering her confidence. "Your treasure matters," Tanisha whispered, inching closer to the little girl. "Just like every moment we're sharing right now, it's our story." With each interaction, fear began to transform into empowerment, and the rhythm of laughter somehow found its way back into the air. The girl's grip on her box tightened. "I'm not letting it go," she shouted, eyes brightening with a newfound sense of purpose. Amidst the barking and commotion, something shifted. The dog seemed to wear itself out, panting and momentarily distracted by the bystanders throwing balls, creating moments of joy amid chaos. "Now!" Miles shouted, taking action as the children worked to push the limits of distraction further. They tossed more balls around, working as a team to steer the chaos away from the girl and her treasure. Then it hit him. A sudden wave of clarity washed over Miles. "This is what it's all about," he exclaimed amidst the noise. "The beauty of togetherness, even amid wild moments." The words flowed freely, filled with the overwhelming realization of unity that transcended barriers. Tanisha exchanged glances with him, her smile contagious. He could see confidence washing over her as that same strength illuminated her spirit. "Yes, together," she echoed, her voice resonating with fervor. As the dog finally bowed down, exhausted from chasing the distractions and losing sight of the fight, the crowd erupted in applause. They had done it. The little girl beamed, her treasure safely in hand, leading the jubilant cheer for everything they had faced together. Relief surged through Miles as they enveloped the girl in warm embraces, united in their triumph. The earlier tension began to dissolve, scattered like the remnants of a storm cloud giving way to sunshine. Tanisha looked at him, breathless and filled with joy. "We faced it together." Miles felt the warmth in his heart and knew this moment would mark them in ways that even wealth never could. They were not just navigating a park full of people, they were building a beginning, establishing a bond grounded in mutual respect, vulnerability, and bravery. With the laughter around them echoing life, he realized that their journey was just starting. They saw how together they could weather anything and defend their treasures even in the face of chaos. "Let us never stop digging for treasures," Miles said, as Tanisha beamed at him under the warm sun, radiant with newfound dreams. It was a promise, a reminder of what they were willing to venture into this world together, and as they walked away from the chaos, hands still clasped tightly, they chuckled together, ready to face the future. This is what connection felt like, and it was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now to our channel to follow along for more incredible adventures like this. 1. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these powerful stories. Comment below your reactions and feelings about the journey we shared today, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let's spread this message of courage and unity. Together, we can make a difference.